still have a 4S.
Good.
You know, I'm not
I have
up
a
here.
four.
Support you.
Yeah.
I don't want one either.
I
All right.
ran out of paper.
All right.
That's my excuse.
All right, let's see, where are we? I'd like to call the regular meeting of North Branford Planning and Zoning Commission for Thursday, September 21st to order. In attendance are members Leskovitz, Galdenzi, and Dulac. Did I miss anybody? Oh, wait a minute. Not our newest member, but
New
congratulations
Thank you.
on moving up
Excellent.
to our newest
Fantastic.
regular member.
Yeah, well deserved.
And also Dave Hulkren, who was a regular member, has basically resigned, I guess, but
Yes.
he's moving out of town, so.
It has moved, yes.
He has moved, so we'll welcome aboard again. It's been a wild year for you, you know.
It
The
has.
Hall of Fame for North
Yeah,
Branford
that's
fun.
Sports, now a regular member.
know.
What's next?
I don't know. The sky's the limit now.
Mayor?
Yeah, town
Maybe
council.
in 30 years.
No,
Never
come on.
know.
All right. Let's see, so what we have is the meeting minutes from September 7th. Yep, September 7th. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I did look at them
Did you?
online.
All right.
Online. I did.
So let's see, we were all here. All right, so if you haven't checked them out, do so now. I already did.
You good?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes of meeting September 7th, 2017.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That passes 4-0. Okay, so now we're gonna be doing some planning items, but we have somebody here too, right?
Yes, Attorney Pellegrino.
For?
For 4A, proposed regulations regarding having events on farms.
Oh, okay.
And this is a draft regulation that will, you can pass down.
Oh, okay.
What happened? I don't know what happened. This last one is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not. It was just not stapled. I thought it was falling apart somehow.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's
That
no.
was
We
the
have plenty.
original.
We have plenty. These are extras.
It's a budget crunch.
Yeah.
Carrie's only allowed 10 staples a day. It's environmentally friendly.
That's right.
And it's,
That's
it's,
right.
you know, it's a budget thing.
Reuse paper clips.
Reusable.
Mm-hmm.
Attorney Pellegrino, if you wanna stay for the record and roll us through this?
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. I'm Bernie Pellegrino from the Pellegrino Law Firm in New Haven. And I represent Andy Bizzuto and his family, who owns a farm, large farm here in town. And I've prepared a draft for discussion, an informal discussion tonight of a regulation that would permit outdoor events on farms here in town. Before I get to the reg itself, and I think you guys all have a copy, right? Because I did bring extras.
Yep.
I wanted to start by mentioning why Mr. Bizzuto is interested in proposing this type of regulation. He's a farm owner, obviously, and he's very passionate about farming and the sustainability of farms here in your town and throughout the state as a whole. And he believes this is one of the ways for doing that, giving farmers another opportunity to earn their living by doing outdoor events if they so choose, to supplement their farming activities. It's also a way he believes that we can showcase the farms here in your town to people not only within the town but from outside of the town. I've been on his farm. I was there in the spring. We did a site visit with Carrie and Tom Haggerty to show them the farm. It's a beautiful piece of land. It's an active farm, growing, raising cattle, buffalo, it's other livestock. It's a terrific operation that he has there, beautiful views and vistas. I think it's about 100 acres, but I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. If he was here, he would expound on many of these topics, but it's an opportunity to showcase farms, to help our farmers. Farm to table has become such a new type of business opportunity, a dining experience, an event experience, that he thought, and I agree, that this type of use could be a good one. Other towns in the state have passed similar regulations. We looked at a number of those regs in putting this together, Cheshire, Madison, and others. So the process has been one which I've met a number of occasions with our client, with Bob Criscolo, who's his civil engineer, to look at the layout of his property and to review these regulations and prepare the draft. And the draft that you have before us is based in large part on the winery regulation, which, as you may recall, a few years ago, I was here on behalf of Mr. Rosabianca, who's opened a winery in town, and we presented a regulation very similar to this one to permit wineries, which was an unclassified use in town, and also to permit events on the winery, tastings, other events. And that's turned out to be a pretty successful operation. And I know that you recently entertained an amendment to that regulation that permitted such uses not only in the residential zones, but in the industrial zone for the Rose Farm. I know you also tweaked the reg a little bit to kind of combine the site plan and special permit process into one, so that when an applicant comes for the special use, they have a detailed site plan before you at the same time, so you can appreciate the property itself and where things are going to happen, and look at both the special use and the site plan in conjunction with one another, rather than a preliminary site plan and then a second final site plan process. And so I've done the same thing here with this regulation, as we'll see on page 2. But as I said earlier, it's and now we can go through it. It is a special use, so it would be a special use, which is a public hearing and in accordance with the standards. And as you know, the special use or the special permit provides you with greater discretion to look at the particular site, size of the site, the location of where these events might happen, things like traffic, health and safety, et cetera, and gives you wide discretion in issuing the use permit for that particular site, rather than like a site plan approval where if you meet the regs and all of the standards, you, with very few exceptions, really are bound to approve. So, as is the case with the winery and other special uses, this regulation, proposed regulation, sets forth the standards, and we can go through some of those now, and also talks about the discretionary nature and your ability to consider those factors that I mentioned earlier in granting the permit on a case-by-case basis. So initially we state that if a farm meeting the definition of your regs currently would be permitted to come forward to request the use of the event for banquets, weddings, private parties, farm to table, or similar events, with the only exception to that being that the farm has a minimum size of 10 acres. The definition in section 6.13, I think was 3 acres, Carrie, wasn't it, or was it 5?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The section 6.13, I think, had a smaller minimum lot size. It was either 3 or 5 when we were looking at that.
For the
For the normal farm, or the farm, current definition of a farm under.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, 4 acres, right.
4 acres. So for this regulation, as is the case in the winery, we chose 10 acres as the minimum size.
Where is that in here, 10 acres?
In the
First
first
page of
paragraph.
this.
Yeah, okay, that was like 10 minutes ago.
Special use standards set forth 1 through 11. We provide for setbacks of 100 feet from the nearest property line, not less than 200 feet from any residence that abuts the particular farm. And we define outdoor event area as not only the location of the event, but any tents, parking, et cetera. So any area on the site plan where there would be activity for an event would have to meet those setback standards. Number 2, that we anticipate that as applications come forward, depending on location, size of the lot, ability to parking, size for the parking facilities, that you would have the opportunity to place a maximum, a restriction on the maximum number of guests for any event. So we talk about that there, and we also talk about that there would be no more than 3 events per week. Some, standard stuff, site plan must have adequate emergency access, police and fire must sign off, you gotta meet the health department, fire marshal shall inspect to ensure code compliance, et cetera. Same thing for the health department. Obviously, you need to determine the adequacy of off-site parking. There has to be sufficient parking, on-site parking. So you have to have off-street parking sufficient for the size of the events, and it ties back into maximum number of guests that would be able to be hosted at any event. Food service facilities complying with state and local codes. I can't speak for every applicant that might come forward, but typically the events are catered. You bring in temporary restroom facilities for the events. That's what our client has talked to us about. Again, all of those things meeting the setbacks, all in compliance with state and local codes. Same thing with outdoor lighting, meeting the requirements of your zoning regulations. We put time limitations on playing of outdoor music, no sooner than 10, no later than 10 on Monday through Friday, and on Saturday between 12 and 10. On Sunday between 12 and 10. On page 2, we put coverage restrictions, no more than 5% of the lot area.
What do you mean by building? Are you talking about the tents?
Tents, or if there's a pavilion, our client has actually a pavilion on his site, which is a permanent structure
Okay.
that he would anticipate utilizing.
Yeah, we might want to you might want to just clarify, because the building,
Yep.
the pavilion, I think of a building as a permanent structure, and if you're including any tents or temporary structures,
Yep,
I think maybe you'd want to clarify
Yeah, that-
or add both of those in there.
Well, would that also include, because I had a question, the bathroom, size of bathrooms as well, or other tents for food, or?
Any temporary structure. That's what I'm
Okay.
saying, maybe,
Okay.
if he can clarify it, if
structure.
not, yeah. Well, the
Okay.
actual
No,
bathroom, yeah.
Yeah, it was just.
But, yeah, I didn't mean to
Structure?
stop you, but I just thought.
Yeah, I only jumped in because he asked the question.
paving, no more than 10%, signage in accordance with the regulations not to exceed 16 feet. And I think this is important, on an annual basis, the operator shall provide you with a list of events anticipated for the next 1-year period. so that you have notice of when those events might take place. And I put some language in there that if someone came to them and wanted to do an event that wasn't on the list, that was submitted on May 1st, that they could amend the list by providing you at least 45 days' notice. Under permit procedures, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to submit your special use permit and your detailed site plan together. Those would all be considered along with an existing condition survey of the site. We have the typical special permit, special use language in there that I mentioned earlier, and some requirements for what would be required on the site development plan, which again I took essentially verbatim from your recent amendment to the winery regulation. So, so that's the proposal, and a lot of the language is or should be pretty familiar to you from the winery reg. So we wanted to put it on the table and give you the opportunity to comment, question, any feedback. Obviously, I have taken note of the issue of including tents, temporary structures, and building under the coverage. Section 1 in the bulk standards.
When you keep talking about the wineries and their events, there's no correlation between what a winery is doing. It's promoting its wines and having little events, wine tastings and things like that. And that's nothing like what's put forward here. The events, what kind of events could you possibly think of that would promote a farm? Yeah, income, sure. I mean, I happen to know Mr. Bizzuto's layout, and, you know, he's already got a big pavilion there that fits right into these regulations. But if we're gonna do anything at all, then these regulations have to be fitted out to any farm that wants to promote something that has to do with farming. I mean, just to say an event, what is an event to you? Maybe a wedding, okay, I could see a wedding, and then you run into, well, would there be liquor at the wedding? What other kind of event? Farmer's market, well, you don't need all this for farmer's market. I'm trying to think what would possibly, because there aren't too many farms in this town that are gonna comply with this regulation. 10 acres, sure, there's some 10-acre farms, but not that fit any of the other requirements, except maybe Roses, which is already going for a winery, and Mr. Bizzuto. The other 10-acre farms that to my knowledge, that are around town would never fit any of these requirements. So, are we gonna pass a regulation for one farm? Or are we gonna look at this for any farm that has 10 acres that, you know, we could tweak some of the regulations, and yes, they could have some kind of event. But to me, this is geared towards one big farm.
I think one thing is, I put a note down, we'd have to look at what other 10 acres, and we don't have to do it now, but
Yeah.
when it comes up, you know, wherever this goes, if it comes up, we would probably want to take a look at those.
Yeah, there are 10-acre farms.
One question Farian has, what type of events are you seeing, you know?
Sure. I think a number of types of events. Weddings is clearly one. I was at a wedding in Vermont. It was held on a farm in the barn. So weddings would be one. And related events like that. birthday parties, confirmation parties, corporate outing on a farm. So I think those type events could fit into the definition. What I've read about, although I haven't been to it, but I think it's become very popular, I mentioned earlier, farm-to-table events where perhaps a charity might host an event on the farm. The farm is, the event showcases stuff that's grown on the farm, so you're having those types of events. Or is having events on a particular farm that's not only utilizing stuff from that farm, but also other farms perhaps in town. Perhaps Mr. Rosa Bianca's wine is part of the event. So I think those have become pretty popular. They're community-based events. They could be open to the public. You could have events like that as part of community events on Columbus Day or 4th of July, et cetera, where you bring people on to the farm. I do think it would showcase the farm. What do I mean by that? Bringing people onto the farm, showing what type of operations are happening there, the quality of the crop, the quality of the products produced. And in that respect, I think it could be similar. I know it's not the same, but similar to what the winery reg is allowing him, Mr. Rosa Bianca, and hopefully Rose's, to do with the wine that they are producing.
So on that note, I mean, my question or concern is, what you just mentioned, farm to table, seems reasonable, seems like a benign use. And when you talk about 3 events, I started envisioning what that could be. And farm to table seems, again, reasonable, but when you think about it, this would be allowing essentially a wedding a weekend. Not that they would do that, even more, it says 3, but in theory, probably a Saturday,
Yeah.
weather permitting. So during peak season time, once a week, you could have a wedding on these things. These typically are in, I mean, wedding venues are typically, I assume, business zoned or something, These could be right in the middle of residential. This is residential zone with residential. You could essentially have weddings every weekend. So the 3 events per week to me are a little concerning because there's no boundaries on it. If it was 2 to 3 events of the farm to table type and this many weddings, that seems to me to be a little more plausible. But to just say up to 3 events a week with no boundary or no
Yep.
definition or limitation, that to me seems a little concerning because we're talking residences. This is a
And
residential zone.
Liquor has to be brought into the subject also, because the farm wouldn't have a liquor license, I would assume. So-
They would have to have a caterer
would
with
have,
a
yeah.
caterer with a liquor license, right? Yeah. Yeah, 'cause it would, I mean, on some of the same notes, just kind of carrying on with Fran and Bill, I mean, you mentioned the wineries. Well, the wineries have a structure where they have an indoor facility for music and entertainment. And here, we said building, but I mean, that doesn't mean you have to have one, it's just what kind of structure. So it's potentially outdoor and in a residential area. And now we're talking about when you talk about boundaries of, shall be a minimum of 200 feet from any off-site residence and 100 feet from the property boundary, on a 10-acre lot. I think, if there's gonna be some kind of events that are going into the night, they should be as far away as possible from any boundaries, especially because of residential. Now, we're gonna have to take a look at these other 10-acre in there. But, I mean, we don't wanna have something that's gonna, let's be honest, disrupt the residents. I mean, that's, even when we looked at some of these, the wineries, we looked around, we had the public hearing, they had an indoor structure, they are gonna have some events, they're gonna be indoors. So that, having music outdoors and having music indoors or events, that's a big difference.
Yep, I agree that, and certainly when and if we get to the to the point that we're discussing the reg as part of a formal application, want to try to address that. Or, as I mentioned earlier, you, in entertaining any particular application, once this regulation is proposed, would be looking at a detailed site plan. Do you have a structure? Where is the structure located? How much parking do you have available? And although I think, obviously, we've certainly looked at our client's property as we proposed the reg, in looking at the farm map that we reviewed the other day, there could be multiple sites. I think it's not just one that could take advantage of this type of regulation based on the farm map that I've looked at. But yes, I think all of those factors would be important as, and if applicants come forward to take advantage of the reg, do they have a permanent structure? Where will the event be located? How far of a distance?
Well, that's why, if we're gonna put a reg together, we wanna make sure we put as much in there
Yeah.
up front, so it doesn't leave for,
Detailed discussion each and
yeah,
every
so,
time,
wide
up to 3
interpretation.
times a week.
Yeah.
I mean,
for
we
an
believe,
event.
we believe there should be some flexibility, so we can have a discussion, but when it comes to something like that, you're talking about 3 a week, and then the hours, if you're close, say somebody brings one in, it's gonna be, 200 feet away, they're gonna have entertainment, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you have neighbors nearby, music playing up to, I think, 10 o'clock at night during the week. That's gonna be, I believe that would be, an issue to any residents in that area.
Yeah.
And again, this regulation, now, the property that you're kind of, basing this off of might not have that, but the other ones may. So again, it's not, we can't spot zone, it's for all those properties, and we really have to take a look at that, especially like the hours of, for the entertainment or music. We have to take a look at that too, and really look at this regulation across all those to make sure that the residents that are near these farms, if they are protected.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree
think
with you.
for me, though, going back to this 3 times event, I mean, a farm operation, a successful farm operations that's doing these events to promote that, for me, I'm all for that.
Oh, absolutely.
But
yeah.
three events a week, it's almost, that's the business, and the farm then becomes a secondary thing. And your business is your 3 events. And I don't think these are residential zones we're
Yep.
talking, so that's a business use.
Yeah.
So we're kind of flipping this around.
Yeah,
But
I think that's
farm promoting, using events to promote the culture and the rural
That's-
nature of North Branford, all for it.
That's what I
But
was,
becoming a business and
Yeah.
that's secondary, that seems a little.
that's what I was trying to get at before, is that there are there are a lot of 10-acre farms. I don't think too many of them are gonna fit in this particular criteria. So if we're going to look at them having anything, it has to be, so it's broad enough for any 10-acre farm,
Yeah.
that's gonna fit certain criteria.
Well, I
Um,
think, and I agree with that, it has to fit all the farms, but let's be honest, the way the first paragraph reads is, you could have any event on the farm as this is proposed. So we could make the regulation broad for all farms, but the scope does need to be limited to, more farm-centered and focused activities, because,
Well,
the language
I can
says.
understand a wedding, and some of the other things
Yeah.
that you talked about, but there has to be a limit. I mean,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, if
That scope
somebody
has to be
decides,
narrowed.
well, this regulation, and we've got plenty of room here, why can't we have, Joe's Blow Band come in, and, we're gonna have a,
Woodstock.
concert.
it's gonna be
A concert for a
concert,
charity.
and it's gonna benefit somebody, but it's still,
Serve, yeah.
it's a whole different ballgame
Mhm.
than promoting a farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point.
I'm not against it,
Yeah.
the
Correct.
whole,
Yep.
concept, it's just that the way it is right now, it wouldn't get my approval.
Well, that's why we wanted to come in
Yeah.
formally and get your feedback.
And-
Absolutely.
And my fear is to the, you know, I live close to a farm and it's like, so the music might end at 10 PM, but I wouldn't want people drunk walking around if alcohol is on site at 12, 1 AM. What's being left on for the off-street parking, because that's a significant concern of mine for the residences, because are people parking on my lawn? Are people gonna hit my mailbox? I don't want people walking drunk or buzzed down the street. So I have a significant concern with the off-street parking, because in these residential areas, that's what off-site means. You're parking in front of other people's residences.
Can I ask you, I want to clarify that, because I took it as a different way.
Off-
Oh, okay.
Off streets.
I took off-street parking, mean all the parking has to be on his property.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
took off-site parking as the parking on the
Yeah,
street.
at first I did
Oh,
too,
so
and
could
then-
that might need to be clarified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I made a note.
So what is
And I
off-site?
mean- Off-site
It has
means,
to be on the property, the parking, all the parking.
It should be
Can't
on-site,
on the street.
adequate on-site parking.
yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I may have got that backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, clearly,
Okay.
the intent is no off-site parking,
My mistake. Yeah, that's
no
what I got nervous about.
on-street parking.
Yes.
I mean, Trish is, the parking set aside, but the hours of operations really need to be looked at, especially during the week.
And
And, even
What's
the
our
weekend
noise-
too.
the noise
I mean,
ordinance?
how
is
do you
nine,
limit
right?
the amount of people? I mean,
Yeah, so.
what,
If somebody the event, I mean, that's something that needs to be, but if there's an event, there needs to be we can't have 70 people in here because it's
Right.
because whatever rate it is. So there needs to be a process put in place I would say for almost each event.
There is, right? Must be a permit through the fire
Well,
marshal, right?
yeah, there's more to it. I think we would need to.
Right, so I don't know if the fire marshal has a process, because we've never really done this
Yeah.
before. But under number 2, the special use standards, it just talks about the maximum number of attendees, guests permitted for any event shall be determined.
Right.
So what we had talked about
Where is
was
Number 2.
number 2. If an applicant comes before the commission, the way that this is written anyway, they would apply for a special use permit with a site plan showing the area, kind of like the worst case scenario, right, for
Okay, yeah, the
hosting events.
maximum.
Okay.
So if the commission agreed to this regulation anyway, and approved a special use permit with a site plan saying this area will be our event area with a maximum number of 200 guests or whatever the number is, show parking, show temporary bathrooms, etc., then that's what would be permitted for any events going forward, and then the applicant would just submit a list to us of the
For-
events, the
for that
dates,
particular, piece of-
location.
yeah, for that particular location, not
Right.
all locations.
Correct.
Right,
Right, for
Specific.
just for that property, but what you would be approving under this regulation would be, okay, this, X property can have events, whether they're in October, December, April, over the course of the year, and it could be a wedding, it could be a
Right.
farm to table dinner, it could be a horse show. It didn't matter which event, but you would be limited to that area.
Yeah.
and there would be a maximum number, as we wrote it, that would be approved at the time of the special use, saying, yes, we'll give you the special use permit, but based on your site plan, maximum number of guests per event shall be X.
And if somebody brought in a site plan, we would be getting referrals from the fire marshal and the police chief as well, so.
One question that I had is just about, under number 7, it talks about the parking. I didn't know, maybe if you could take another look at look at section 53 of our regulation that speaks to parking, and I'm wondering which category you fit under.
Okay.
Because it seems like just having the word adequate on-site parking is kind of too fuzzy. I think it would be better if we fit it into a use classification.
Mhm.
Okay.
So one that that comes to mind, I don't know if this is the perfect fit or not, but we have flea markets. It just talks about one space for each 50 square feet of showroom / display area, plus one space
Do you
for
have-
each employee.
I will look at that. Is there like an assembly?
What was the farm, what did the farm go under? The winery.
That's a good question.
Can we,
I'll look.
I
We,
think
we have,
another point on number 7 was, you have, the areas must be usable in all weather conditions of visiting vehicles and also emergency vehicles too, clearly.
Yeah,
It'd have to be,
thought there is you know,
number 6. would be-
if you weren't gonna limit yourself to a particular time of year, that
That-
you'd have to have at least a surface that could support emergency vehicles and generally support your parking. Whether that's pervious or impervious, I guess,
Yeah.
might
I
depend
just
on.
mean you specifically list, areas must be paved or improved, but must be accessible to and usable to, in all weather conditions for visiting vehicles. It sounds like that's the guest, but it should also be visiting vehicles and emergency
Yeah,
vehicles.
okay, yeah.
so under the
Well,
winery.
doesn't 6 cover that, really?
No.
Do we have
It's
one?
not
on
really
that?
No.
code,
Yeah.
it could,
Sure,
it
public
could,
safety and
it
code
could.
Number
compliance.
3
It
just.
could, I mean, you could read into it like that.
I think I meant to include both, certainly we could tighten that up.
I'm just confused, because we keep talking, so like in 7, the parking area does not have to be paved, but then on the second page, site paving shall cover no more than 10% of the lot area. I don't know,
That's
is
if you- that's
it
if-
being paved or is it not?
No,
So
that's
I'm
if
just
you choose
confused.
to pave it, it can't be any
Okay.
more than the 10%.
Right.
But you can leave it gravel if you want to.
And what do we mean by, remember, I am new to this, what do we mean by lot area? So is it the
The
10 acres?
size of the parcel.
whole size of the parcel, so
The 10
it's of
acres.
the parcel, but not the 10 acres?
No, the 10
No,
acres.
it's
The
a
10 acres is the
Okay,
parcel.
all right,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just was confused, because
Yeah.
lots, like when you talk about a lot, it's usually smaller than like the whole piece of land. So I was just confused by that
So,
word.
This would be the whole parcel, so the whole lot.
Do we maybe want to change that word, or am I being a pain?
Well, I think that actually 10% is actually quite a bit. So 10% of 10
Yeah.
acres is 1 acre. That's a large area that could be paved.
Yeah, well, it's,
In Madison's regulations, they actually prefer that it not be paved. Their language is,
That's why I'm confused. It is being paved, it's at the discretion, is it
Discretion.
not? So maybe that should be in there?
so
Well,
just
it
to
says
read
it-
what.
It says that.
Just to read what the town of Madison has, unless otherwise approved by the commission, all parking for such events must be entirely accommodated on the farm. No impervious parking areas shall be created to accommodate parking for such events.
Okay.
I like that.
You like that better? I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as we talk about, you don't wanna change the nature of the
Yeah.
site and flip, from farm
Right,
to
primary
event
use.
center.
Yeah.
Not having a huge paved parking area
Correct.
is probably better. So I think that's a good idea, a good suggestion. And I think leaving the language in that says you've got to provide the access to it is probably good, because depending on how far they have to go, it might be determined either that it's not an appropriate site, or maybe it's not a site that should be used in the winter, because
Mhm. It's
we
hard to
don't
get
think
to.
that you're gonna be able to access the area during the winter months, so
Right.
maybe a way of looking at seasonal limitations.
So on number 11, how'd you come up with the times? Does that follow something in our regulations already, or
what's the noise ordinance?
noise regulations we
Is
have?
it 10? Probably 9, but maybe it's 10.
I'll have to double check.
I think those are, those are.
I'll make sure that it
Those are,
conforms.
I think those are,
Yeah.
yeah, those are acceptable.
I would-
I mean, except for,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we wanted to align with whatever we have
But that's
already.
in line with the
well,
residential noise ordinance.
yeah, but there's a difference between, like I said, you have the winery and some other places that are in areas that are not near residential. This is, so whether it's aligned or not, doesn't mean you
Oh,
have to go
still-
with the alignment. We can say, you know, on the weekdays.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, oh, right.
You know,
Oh,
I
be
mean,
more
we,
restrictive.
there's, yeah, we
Mhm.
can, yeah, so I mean.
Oh, that's a good
I
point.
think these are, I think these are.
But just to
in
double
line.
check
Yeah.
hours, though.
Yeah, they look like they're in line with the other
Is
ones, but.
Madison the only one that has this farm?
No.
Cheshire.
Cheshire.
Cheshire?
And
I've
actually
seen Cheshire and
Clinton-
Madison, Clinton.
Clinton does as well.
I didn't check every town, but we
Is
found
there any way
those.
we can look at those?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll make copies.
How about
Yeah. I mean,
pyrotechnics? Any, is that legal?
What?
Fireworks.
Fire
pr-
marshal,
Probably need a fire
you
marshal.
have to approve of it.
I didn't think of that, but.
Well,
No, I mean, that's-
again,
that's-
there's three,
you
three
just
events
can't.
a week, and, you know, fireworks in a residential, again, not that anyone
No,
would
I
be
hear you.
doing fireworks 3 times a
Right.
week, but it says you can, if it went forward.
Just a
Says
quick-
he can?
Well, you're saying you can have 3 events a week.
Oh,
so
it
if
does
you
say
get it
3
approved
events. I
by the
didn't-
fire marshal,
Yeah.
then you could have them 3
Yeah.
times. We're in a residential zone.
The hours on the farm was 9 to 10 during the week, 9 AM to 10 AM during the week, and 9 to midnight on Friday and Saturday. Now, that's hours of operation
Yeah.
in toto, not necessarily
Yeah.
music
That amount.
hours of operation, so.
Yeah, I think we wanna probably file something like that. Hours of operation,
And then entertainment?
yeah,
Yeah.
separate the two.
That's fine.
Yeah, cause Trish brought that one point up. And then one other question I gotta ask the commission is that, under, on the second page, special bulk standards. So, through this, special use permit, site plan approval, they provide us with a list of scheduling events and then they modify it throughout the course of the year or whenever. I don't think we need to be the, how do we say, to police, I mean, that's not what we're here for. So I don't, you know, I mean, maybe at the time of the first site approval, I mean, we could get an idea of what types of events, but if anything, it should be, at least, if anybody needs to be notified, it'd be the police department. No, I mean, us being notified, unless you can see a reason that we should be, you know what these events are, or when they are, or what they're about.
The zoning enforcement officer did like that paragraph, so,
Okay.
We can notify him.
right, and he's in the
Well,
planning and zoning
Yeah, I just,
department.
can you ask
so-
him what his thoughts on that?
Oh.
Because if there was a thought behind it, like, I mean, I'd like to know, we're not. it's
He
kinda like
thought that was a nice addition, you
Yeah.
know,
And what
just
about
to-
this signage? What kind of signage would be talking about for a farm that may be having, you know, next week they're having a wedding? I mean, what, you talking about advertising the availability of this farm to
No.
have these events?
No, just, I was thinking, it's the name, B,
Second
what's his
page,
name,
number 3.
Triple B Ranch, or whatever
Right,
he calls it.
right.
Oh, yeah.
So he has a sign in front of his driveway, so if you're going to an event and you know, my wedding's gonna be at the B&B Ranch, such and such a road, North Branford, when you're
Well, yeah,
driving
that-
and you see
A
the.
sign for the farm is one thing, yeah.
But any sign that they do, they have to bring in to us for anyway for
Yeah,
approval.
I meant the sign for the farm.
Whether it's at the site plan or after the site plan, they would have to bring it in for approval.
Right, fill out a signed
Yeah.
permit, and then the zoning officer,
Yeah.
if it's not connected with the
site,
site
yeah.
plan. But to your point, Fran, they could only have a sign for that farm or a sign for the event. You can't have 2 signs. It's only 16 square feet per parcel. You know, so one
Yeah,
sign.
I mean, I can understand having a sign for the farm.
Right.
You know, but a sign for the event or that we have events, that wouldn't go.
No.
But the other thing that,
I
I-
put that in there to actually try to limit signage, so you're not
Yeah.
doing that. You've got one
Correct.
sign for your place and that's it. You can't have
Yeah.
well,
17
then I
signs.
think it should be specific that the sign is referring to the property, the farm or whatever.
Quick,
Right,
You know, like,
Right.
if
no, I
If Di
agree.
Francisco's wanted to put a sign out saying, which I think they just did, Di Francisco Farm, fine,
Right.
you know, or Kevin, or not Kevin, God rest his soul, but,
Our farm.
Yeah, one of the
Mhm.
augers,
Mhm.
auger farms, you know.
Right. The luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had this situation, but there's been a lot of case law about signs, and towns can't regulate content. So if Bizzuto's farm wants to have a sign, as long as it's 16 square feet that says "We host weddings," they can do that. As long as they don't have that sign and B2B farm or whatever.
I don't think that should happen on a farm.
No, I agree. I'm just, we
I mean,
can't
because then you're
regulate what
going
it
back to
says.
what he's saying is that now we're promoting a business, not a farm.
Correct.
Is a big difference.
Right.
And
No, I
I
know.
started to say is when I first started with any objections that I might have thought of, was that we take a hard look at, that we're not pinpointing to a specific farm, that we
Yes.
are looking at
Right.
all the farms. And I would like to see what the regulations are for the other towns. And
Uh-huh.
somehow I'd like to find out what these farms have actually, I mean, I'm sure some of them are doing horse shows, you know, even the farm down the street, every so often they'll do a small horse show. It's
Yeah.
not big, it's just for the
Yeah.
people there.
So I know there's two in Madison. There's Barberry Farm that's on the Post Road on Route 1. They have the farm to table dinners. You know, so they have a big tent. It's like a big wedding, but you know, people don't know each other. So those are, like Attorney Pellegrino said, they raise money for different
okay.
organizations. So there's that. I don't know if they host other events. Maybe they do weddings, actually. And then there's a farm on Green Hill Road, and they do like birthday parties, weddings. They do the farm to table dinner. So I think even birthday parties could fall under this. You probably wouldn't get into like the 100 person attendance, but you know, possibly
Well,
20, 30.
I just, there's gotta be some way that
We control the events.
yes,
Well,
we
not
That
we
it's
don't need
connected
the
to the
events.
The
farm.
farm.
and
We wouldn't be
it's-
able to connect.
No,
Yeah.
meaning to keep it connected to the farm. Because
Oh,
he
yeah.
said corporate outings, charity events, then it popped in my head reunions, like,
Yeah.
you could go on and on with the way it's written now, what events we're having, because you could say, well, it's on a farm, we're promoting the farm.
Yeah.
So I do think somehow we need to rein that in. I just had a comment about the paragraph we were just talking about, you know, letting us know the number of dates. My impression on first reading that was, the list to be amended time to time would be if somebody wants to have an event that we didn't know about. So I think that should be in there, because we do, obviously, we would know too. How do we come up with the 45 days? Is that enough time with whatever, because we need a public hearing and whatnot?
No.
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 They're just gonna give us, they're gonna notify us.
They already have approval to do
So
these things.
what they're saying is that they're not gonna take an event unless the town is notified 45 days before the event. So if there was something happening October 1st, they wouldn't be able to hold it because it doesn't fall in the 45 days.
No, but if
correct?
it
Am I-
fell.
If they weren't on the original
So,
list.
so
But if it fell within that time, is that enough time to do everything we need to do?
we don't have to do
We
anything,
don't
they're
have
just
to do
notifying us.
anything.
We don't have to do anything.
And I think it would be enough time, because what I would say is if something came on the list that wasn't included, I might have the zoning officer go out there, or we'd look at the site plan together and talk with the applicant to say, okay, what is this? Is this within the area? You've never held one of these before. What does it look like? What's your attendance going to be? So I think 45 days would be enough time.
So wait, then I'm confused. So every
So,
time there's an
uh,
event, we do need to do,
No,
we
s-
need to review each event, or no?
No.
No,
A
so
site
this,
plan for each event,
this,
no?
this is
No.
the, this is the
That-
text
This is not
amendment.
proposing that.
This
Okay.
is the text amendment to, if we approve it, allows anyone with a farm that meets these definitions. Then the specific situation, they'll have to come back with a specific application. If that gets approved, they have approval to do these things. They're just notifying of this list.
Okay.
That's just like, almost like a courtesy.
So who goes over the site
Just,
plan?
right.
Why does there need to be a site plan?
Well,
Well, no, that's for the
That's-
actual, the
that's-
We
physical.
have to have a site
That's
plan.
for the farm, I mean, that's for the farm and the structures that are on, that host the events. But that won't ever change.
Oh, see, I feel like that will change for other farms. Like if you have a temporary tent and then you're gonna take it down, so So that's where my head went.
So
If-
for each applicant, they would have to submit a special use permit application.
For this
which-
one area that it's never
For-
gonna be,
Exactly, it would never go beyond that, but they would have, it would be, you know, their responsibility to plan out a site plan to say, this is kind of worst case scenario, the most impact that we would have on the farm is an event this size. And then if they received approval, they would only have to submit a list of events that they would have annually that would fit within that disturbance zone or whatever you wanna call it.
okay, I got you.
So, and Tricia, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I thought every
So with
event
the-
we had to
with-
review it,
right.
because we're talking temporary, and like he
Right.
said, in the winter, you might not to be able to use this area, so we might have to use a different area.
So what they'd come in is they would
So how
say,
much-
on this
how
property,
about-
we are gonna use this half acre for an event. That means they can put one tent, they can put 4 tents, but they're only gonna confine it, so we don't care how many tents they're gonna put up.
Okay, but
as
in
long
that
as it-
area, based
long
on
as-
the-
Right, long as
we
it's in that
approve
half,
this.
yeah.
They have approval to
So then
do
with
that.
each event, the zoning officer does that
Yes.
nitty gritty.
If he
Exactly.
has
Okay,
to,
okay.
if he has to,
If he
right.
has to.
Right.
That's why the list would be important, because then
I
Carrie,
agree,
the
because
zoning
you could
officer,
have
can
a
say-
small birthday party,
Yeah.
and then you could have a huge
Right.
wedding, so
But the
who's
expectation
who's
would be
watching
that the
that?
parking wouldn't change, the parking
Yeah.
location would always be the same.
Okay.
The tent location would always be within that disturbance area. They
So
could
now
have
I comprehend what
one
you
or
said, like
4 or-
maximum, worst case
Right.
scenario, number of
Right.
people.
So,
I think
Yeah,
the
so let's
thought
just change
is
that from-
that it was a courtesy
instead of planning the.
and an enforcement.
Yeah, no, I
Right.
like that as well,
So if we give
'cause
you the events.
if we give you
Yeah.
carte
or
blanche
anybody
and no
gives you the
regulation.
list of events, and all of a
They can
sudden,
raise
the
concerns with
neighbor
specific ones.
calls and says, hey, they had 3
And
events there this
You
weekend.
feel, Carrie, 45 days is enough time for you and the zoning officer?
Yes.
And if you could
Because
just-
I've already applied to that specific farm, like you just said, if it's
Okay.
this acreage and you've already been approved to have this section,
XYZ set up.
then
in
it
this
doesn't
way.
matter
Okay,
to us
Gotcha.
what, you know.
I got you.
So if you wanna
Okay, I
change that
understand
one
that.
section to provide the planning and zoning department with a list, if you put the zoning enforcement officer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause we are not the enforcement wing of the.
Although this says planning and zoning department though, right?
Right,
No,
and he's
no,
with
not
the
commission.
answer.
You know, just, yeah,
We're commission,
Yeah,
not the
let's-
department.
Yeah.
give it right to the zoning enforcement officer.
that's what I was like, wait, we have to review a site plan for every party? That
Mm,
seems
mm.
Okay.
extreme, but now I understand.
Does the other regs, do you know, what, are there limitations? I'm still going back to this 2 or 3 events, trying to say,
The other towns?
what do, it seems like, again,
I think I
it's-
took that from Cheshire, quite frankly.
Really?
But I don't remember.
I agree with
Well,
that. How do we
we'll
find
look
the
at-
balance between farm versus business?
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's-
What's
struggling
that?
with, too.
I agree with, how do we find the balance between farm versus teetering over very easily into
Yeah.
business?
Cause
I
now
think we
you're,
need to proceed
now you're a wedding
cautiously
venue,
with
and
that.
that would be in a business zone, and you'd have a wedding
So
venue.
this-
This is not a wedding venue, this is
Correct.
this is a farm trying to promote
Right.
farming and their farm.
So this is
So-
Madison's. Non-agriculturally related uses are subject to the following limitations and criteria. An annual operation plan for non-agriculturally related uses shall be submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission as part of the special exception review application process. The annual operational plan shall include the number, type, and duration of events that are anticipated to be held each month of the calendar year. Any special exception permit issued for any non-agriculturally related uses shall be conditioned on compliance with an approved annual operation plan. An
Makes
updated
sense.
annual operational plan shall be submitted to the zoning enforcement officer
Mhm.
by January 31st of each calendar year. However, as a condition of approval, the Planning and Zoning Commission may require that the updated annual operational plan be submitted back to the commission for approval. Minor changes to the annual operation plan may be approved by the zoning enforcement officer. An increase of not more than 20% in the number or duration of events from the original operational plan approved by the commission shall be considered a minor change. Any proposed changes that are not minor in nature shall be reviewed and approved by the commission through submittal of a special exception modification application. The commission may waive the requirement for a public hearing.
I mean, there might be, I mean, if you're looking to maybe, I don't wanna say restrict, but I'll use the word because I don't have the word to use.
Yeah.
but Then you could, you say that, we could look at something about a structure, a usable structure. So, they talk about temporary tents or a pavilion, but we could say it's limited to a X amount of square feet structure that they could put on the property. So it can't be a wedding or banquet hall, cause you're not gonna allow a large building to go on to function, for the secondary function, So there could be some limitations we can put in there on a structure. So if somebody wants to build a structure, it has to be small enough, or it can't be, can't exceed a certain size, where then it becomes a banquet hall where you can have 200 people in there. If you wanna make something so it's small, it can hold maybe, 50, 100 people, whatever it is, that's something we could be considered, I guess.
I agree, I don't know
So-
how to
There's-
keep us
This-
on the
this-
farm.
This speaks more to the whole idea of the farm, though.
Yeah.
It's promoting the agricultural, and
Yeah.
it
Well,
allows for
that's right.
non-agricultural, but you have to
Yeah.
submit a plan, and it has to be reviewed,
Yeah.
and it has to be
But, I mean, that makes- that
reasonable
makes-
and not taking
that makes
But
advantage
the
sense
of.
thing is,
A
though, it doesn't
business.
say anything about
I
how
don't
many
think
times a
so.
week.
No,
Correct.
No,
they
I
leave
mean,
it
but
open.
the
So-
part that says
Something about-
non-agricultural
Something
makes
about-
sense.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
that part, yeah.
And then the other thing that they have in here that we may want to include is no music concerts are allowed. Live or amplified music
So
is
that's a way
only
to
allowed
restrict
in
it.
connection with an otherwise permissible non-agriculturally related use.
Read that again? Sorry, I'm a visual person.
So no music concerts are allowed. Live or amplified music is only allowed in connection with an otherwise permissible non-agriculturally
Oh, so
related
they
use.
could have used it with the non-ag use, okay.
So a
If
wedding.
it's, if it's
they get-
Yes.
amplified
If they
or,
get approval for a wedding on their approval plan, they can have
Right.
amplified music, but,
Right.
yeah, sure.
They just can't pimp.
Again,
Can't have a Woodstock.
I don't know about anybody else, but I would like to review all
oh,
those.
sure.
Absolutely, no, I
Yes,
agree.
yes.
No, I agree, I need a context for it as well.
So I think we've given them enough feedback, unless there's
Yeah.
anything else, so.
I think so, all good suggestions. I look at Cheshire, just briefly, I don't see any restrictions, so maybe I just put 3 in to provide us with some structure, but we'll play with that. Maybe the operation plan, we can work something in there, so.
And maybe you wanna, just
I
one
like
more
the
thing.
non-ag
Use that
distinction, I
phrase,
think
yeah.
that's,
Yeah, I
that's
do
a
too.
good distinction,
'Cause we
and
wanna
maybe
promote the
it's
Mhm.
no more than 1 non-ag use per week, or no more than 3 per month, or something like that. And
I like how that sounds.
yeah,
So how to-
Just one last
So I'll
thing,
play-
is on number 9 about the food service facilities must comply with state. I think having no preparation,
Yeah,
no food prep
On site.
on site.
uh,
There's
So
a
it's just
difference between
catered, right?
prep
Just catered, yeah.
and a caterer putting stuff together, so I'm no food prep.
okay.
I mean, you
well,
can take a look at that, because
I'll take
that's
a look.
something that means caterer. I mean, they can come in and they can put they might have to cut some
Food there.
cheese and stuff and put it on a platter, that's not food prep. We're just talking about,
You're talking about cooking the food on the premises.
yeah, I'm not sure the wordage.
yeah, I support that as
But
well.
I think it was called, and the winery, I think in the winery they had something like that.
You could bring in hot food and
Serve it.
keep it on sternos and
Yeah,
stuff,
you
yeah.
could- yeah. I'm just
Serve
saying,
it,
yeah, I
yeah,
can't
but not,
remember
but not
but-
cooking it in
But
a,
if you could, look around
A
or
facility.
Yeah.
and see if there's something you could put in that kind of terminology,
Yeah.
right?
The other
Well,
thing,
I mean, you can't, I'm sorry.
that's okay, go ahead.
Just, I'm thinking about the catering business, because I was in that business. They could have stoves there to heat things, because you can't always keep things hot on a
Okay.
sterno. So sometimes caterers can bring the food in all prepared and just need stove to warm it up or heat it up.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
So
but
that, that it isn't just keeping it on a sterno.
no, I'm not saying they can't have facilities, I'm saying they can't
They
do
can't
it.
cook the
They
food
can't actually
there,
cook this
right,
food,
right.
whatever it might be.
Because then it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You have to form it under, I think, restaurant or something.
I don't have a
Or-
problem, not necessarily, but my head keeps going back to this is a farm, right? So
Right.
are we
Well, only
creating a
on that-
business
No.
that just happens to have a farm on there?
No,
When
I
you start
mean,
talking,
Yeah.
ovens and stuff, it's like, well, wait a minute.
I
Is this
only said
Are we
that
creating a
because-
business in a residential zone that just has,
Well, I
happens
mean,
to be,
I mean-
has a
Well, we
farm view?
only
or is
brought it
this-
up because it
Yeah,
happens
No, I know,
to
yeah,
be.
yeah, no,
There's,
I-
Food
there's
service.
a number of issues on this one. You're right. There are a number of issues. But, I mean, we could try to give them the feedback and see what
And the
goes.
alcohol, that comes in with whatever, the
If a
caterer.
caterer gets the
Yeah.
alcohol permit.
What if there is no food and they just want wine, beer, and cheese? How does that get regulated?
Same way. If
No, what if like the people coming in for the birthday party have wine, beer, and cheese?
It would
How do
probably
we-
fall under the.
How does that get
The
regulated?
property owner.
Yeah.
Like they don't need a permit for that, or, I know, my friend has a
I
farm, we
wouldn't
need a
think
permit to
so.
sell
I
raffle
mean,
tickets.
it's,
No, if you had a
Well, wait a
caterer- if you-
minute. If I hire you, if you have a farm, and I say I wanna have a birthday party and we're gonna have liquor, that's not his responsibility,
Whose?
the owner of the farm.
Yeah, it is. You're bringing on their
I
property.
think so.
Yeah, there's two choices.
Well,
If you,
then,
if you have a party at your house and you have a caterer and bring out beer, wine, alcohol, that.
I'm saying no
There-
caterers bringing it, just the people who are having the
that's-
party or the function.
That's up to the farm, that's up to their rules on their own property, saying we do not allow people to bring on their own
But
beer.
they don't need a permit for that, though?
No, who?
The
To bring-
farm?
To bring, to allow
Because it's
people-
residential?
It's private property. I mean, you could, there's businesses that bring your own beer. I mean, there's restaurants that do it.
We have a lawyer here, do you have any?
I think.
Because farm to table events, you're gonna want alcohol there, so is there anything needed for that, or no? Or do we have any?
I think if
we
you're
put
s-
how
it in
does
the
the
reg?
winery?
If you're selling
function?
alcohol,
It-
I think you need a permit.
But
If,
they're selling it. The winery's different because they're selling it.
Selling it, yeah.
you know,
But
They're not
if,
selling it.
if someone like comes
If
onto
they're having
your
a wine
horse
tasting,
farm,
it's still
sell
classified
it.
as selling it.
if I
Yeah.
say, I wanna throw my birthday party, anniversary party on your event, on your property, under the pavilion, we're gonna bring a caterer, and we're going to bring beer and wine, and we're gonna provide it to our guests, that's me.
right.
If the
I guess, do
property
we
owner's
need or
gonna
want
permit it.
anything in our regs about that, or we can't because it's private? That's just where my, like.
I don't
just where
think
my
it should be
head went.
anything in
I don't-
regulation.
Okay,
I mean, they can tell people you cannot bring your own stuff, you need a caterer to do it, or. 'cause they're
Okay.
The property owner's taking responsibility.
Correct. I agree.
Once they allow
That's
somebody to
big liability.
bring their own stuff on the property, they're taking the responsibility.
okay.
But
It's
not
a
if
money.
they have a caterer.
No, because then it's the caterer's responsibility
okay.
to.
Or do we wanna say that all events always have to have a caterer, or no, we
No.
just don't even go there?
No,
Okay.
because for some people might have like a birthday party.
Correct,
And
if
don't,
they
and
bring
don't
their own.
want, beer or wine, and just gonna bring a cake and.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
So I think we can stay out of that business.
Yep.
I mean, I'll be a wine taster,
Okay.
beer taster. Bill, beer taster.
I'll be the beer
Bill's
taster.
worthless beer,
Yep.
so.
Well, I appreciate all your input, all your thoughts. I'll put pen to paper, and Karen and I will get together. And we also talked about maybe meeting with some of the other departments and getting any input
Yeah.
they might have. And maybe
Yeah.
we'll come back one more time informally with the next draft, and we can have another discussion. So thank you very much. and,
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Thanks.
Got the ball rolling.
Okay.
No catering.
Oh, the business zones,
No.
for the housing.
I got
Yes.
10
This is the one where you have
Yeah, there you
the
go.
discrepancy in the regulations, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna pass this down first. So this is the discrepancy that was identified by Criscolo Engineering. How it came about is their client, John Castelvetro, is interested in putting an apartment above Wave Hair Salon, which is on Foxton Road. But our regulations on the table allow for multiple dwelling units with a minimum of 10,000 square feet in a B2 and B3 zone, and it says not applicable in a B1, but I think that's an error as well, because there was a text amendment that was approved in 2014 to allow for multiple dwelling units in B1, B2, and B3, so if you look at the second page. And
Yeah,
then
that's the reason.
the other conflict is under D. It says, lots in the B2 and B3 districts shall contain not less than 20,000 square feet for each dwelling unit. So I went to the Economic Development Commission meeting and asked what they would suggest, what they would recommend. They suggested 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit, be required, as opposed to the 20.
What was their premise behind that?
They looked at, so what I shared with them is, you know, we looked at the parcel that John Castelvetro is interested in having the apartment, and it's not too dense, it still fits with, you know, the character of the neighborhood. So his parcel is about, I think it's 16,000 square feet. It's the one that's,
That little one in front?
that little one, yep. So it's, so 16,000 square feet, so if you allow, if you require 20,000 square feet, he wouldn't be able to have an apartment. If you allow 10,000 per dwelling unit, per multiple dwelling unit, he could have one apartment. This is what it looks like from the street view.
What's MVP?
What's the large, let me ask you a question.
And,
What- I'm
the
sorry.
mixed, business parcel, it's a zone that honestly, we've never really done anything with.
What's the maximum size of the?
Mixed business parcel.
Mixed business,
Is that like a business and
honestly, we haven't
residential?
even,
I
I
don't even know
mean,
what it means.
we
yeah.
never,
It's the second to last on the,
what is it, mixed?
Hmm.
Mixed business park,
yeah.
Miss Business Park?
park.
Park.
What's the largest, what's, in the apartment, is there any minimum or maximum size the apartment can be?
Isn't this
So
what
in the
the
regulation,
So we're saying.
it does not, the apartment size is not specified in the regulation. It does say that there shall be no more than 5 dwelling
Yeah.
units in any building, and each dwelling unit shall be restricted to 1 bedroom. That's highlighted because in my discussions with the Economic Development Commission, they also suggested that that be removed and that we not have a restriction on the number of units or limit the number of bedrooms per unit.
Why?
So isn't part of our job
Because
to
it's, you know,
watch out for density though?
well,
Because
I
it used
don't,
to have no.
We referred that a lot.
I
in
don't know, I
Northford
think
store,
that,
remember?
What?
That was the Northford store, we referred that out a lot. The
the 5.
five units, the Northford store development, we referred to
Right.
that a
Cause
lot.
if you have 10,000.
Which is
It's
strange
five.
to me because, sorry, I have so much paperwork. But I tried to print out, or I did print out maps of each of the areas of town that are zoned business. And I tried to address each of the, or label each of the parcels that have apartments on the second floor or
Mhm.
apartments. So the Northford store is one, so they have 5 one-bedroom units,
Right.
but it's less than an acre. So it's actually
It is?
less than the 10,000 square foot per
Hmm.
multiple dwelling
Oh, yeah.
unit.
How much, how, let me.
I don't know,
Let-
I don't
let
know
me ask you a
how
question.
that
How-
applied, or I didn't pull the file on that.
How
so
short
the-
is it?
How short? What do you mean short?
Of,
Oh, short of the, 10,000 square feet?
4,000.
So,
I wonder if it was,
You
so
might-
point,
I don't know, remember that burned down, I don't know if that had anything to do with that, cause it was probably not, cause it's a reconstruction, there's probably nothing in our regulations that speak to that, is there?
could have been a
It-
conforming, cause they had stuff
it
upstairs.
could have been based on, I
Yeah,
didn't
not
pull the
conforming.
file for that.
Right.
Because it was, I mean, it burned,
Yeah.
it was a result of a building that burned to the ground, and it was
Mhm.
rebuilding it, so.
But
So it does raise an interesting question of, you know, does the Planning and Zoning Commission want to limit the number of units per building? Do you also want to control the number of bedrooms per unit, or is that something that should be market driven? So if you, forgetting about the Northford store for a second, if you just look at John Castelvitro's property, so that is, like I say, around 13 or 16,000 square feet. He has 1,700 square feet of floor area on his second floor. So if the commission agreed to change the regulation to 10,000 square feet per multiple dwelling unit, 10,000 square feet required per dwelling unit, he could have one apartment, but one 1,700 square foot apartment, that seems huge. I just don't know how marketable that is and if that's really helping businesses in town.
I agree.
So then, if you drop it down even more to 5,000 square feet allowed per multiple dwelling unit, then he could have 2 units because he's at 13 or 16,000 square feet. But then that also increases it to other parcels. If you look at,
I don't want apartment
So-
buildings popping up.
I know,
it wouldn't be apartment
No,
buildings.
you
So
know, I
the
know what
other
you mean.
requirement
Yeah, I
of
mean,
this
it's-
regulation is that all of the dwelling units are restricted to the upper floors only. The other big, requirement, I think that would drive the number of units, is requiring parking.
How
So-
about handicap?
It-
Because it was a big
It would
issue,
Handicap-
have to be.
well, there was a big issue of
That's a
What,
building
an
code,
elevator
right?
and,
So,
and the one over Northford Store, and I don't know if they ever put it in or not.
No, the elevator, it was, no.
so I remember this, whether this drove the entire story, but I know we talked a lot about trying to create more of a one-bedroom thing for a younger demographic, and we were talking about creating a village and sidewalks, and we even talked about the ball field, when it ever happened, having the mixed use above, and having this kind of idea
Yes,
of younger
yes.
demographic, creating a
Right.
village and a town green and all that. So with multiple bedrooms, then you're getting more family, like we talked about the Northford store, maybe not conducive to families. I mean, you don't want a lot of families in that, because maybe it wasn't conducive, you got Rite Aid there, it's not like a family thing. But a young professional, it worked well, and we needed that,
okay.
that housing
agree
stock for
with
those
that.
people.
But also.
I remember those
Yeah,
discussions.
Yeah, I mean, those discussions we had at the time, but also we don't wanna, put a stamp on the marketability, meaning that a lot of people work from home now. Now, back then, when this
Yeah.
happened, when was Norfolk Store, 5, 6, 7 years ago?
Probably more than
More
that.
than
Okay,
that,
whatever it
yeah.
is. I mean, working from home, that was not heard of, unless you were like in sales, but now a lot more people work at home. So
Yeah.
having more than one bedroom, you know, you having one room plus an office, or even then if you have people come
Yeah.
visiting and stuff like that. So
I
I
think
don't know. if-
Northford does, but one of them's an office.
Yeah,
It has a bedroom and an
Yeah.
office.
but I'm not
So
sure.
you in theory have two.
But if there was 2 bedrooms, one small bedroom, and you limited the size, and somehow
That's
limits
what-
the size,
Yeah, I think that's what Northford store has.
you know, I
What?
don't think that's.
I think there's
One
there's
with
a
an
room
office.
that's an office, but we had a lot of discussion on that could be a bedroom, but so be it.
But then the parking, you know, if it becomes, if it's 2 bedroom, then they need more parking.
Yeah, I think I'm a little
So
nervous
that would
about
have to
this.
be, and that's what I'm saying, let them market it. If they have the parking, they wanna market 2 bedroom, then, I mean,
There's also East Shore Health.
Yeah, there's
So
a
if
number of
they
issues.
have septic,
Yeah.
that's a big driver of, number of bedrooms. But if they're on sewer,
And-
there's no
I
limit.
mean, I mean, they could say it's 1 bedroom, but it's got this an office in there too that could probably be used for a bedroom, so I'm saying like, you know, I don't know if we need to limit it to, maybe limit it to 2, but again, let them market it, let them go to East Shore, let them figure out what's the best for their property.
I also, as much as I wanna help people, I mean, are we trying to make a regulation that has one relevant spot
Yeah.
that we're trying to do? I don't know the answer to
No,
that, but I'm
so-
saying,
No, no,
Right.
no.
no, I know it has other
Well, we're just trying to
I know-
clarify what it is.
I'm
trying
just
to-
talking about the specific one we talked about.
So the specific,
So we
So-
should look at it, what do we think
Oh,
makes sense, and
absolutely.
then whatever, if
Right.
it fits, it fits, and not.
And that's what I'm
not-
asking
not
about the
other
size
way.
of the units and, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, different story, but the size, I think, the size of the units, I think is important.
The size of what, the square footage or the actual apartment unit?
The apartment unit, cause like Carrie said, you can have this very large.
1,700 square foot.
Yeah, versus what I think the regulation was intended to be is to, you can have a business on the ground floor and you can have an apartment or 2 or 3 upstairs, you know, supplement income, whatever it might be. But, you know, I don't know if we wanna get in, you know, having this one giant, you know, apartment. I don't think that was the intention. As Bill said, when we had the discussion, were to have these, young people, you know, have them an opportunity in certain areas, to rent apartments.
So what are we looking to, so are we gonna put a size restriction on the unit? Or we're not? That's
Well,
there's
We
a few
can-
things on the
we can
table.
decide.
yeah.
I mean, we can.
So the,
Oh,
the
okay.
first thing is, you know, looking at this, inconsistency where in one area it says 10,000 square feet is the minimum per multiple dwelling unit, or is it 20? And now I'm just throwing out there, or should it be, should we consider 5,000 square feet?
If it was 5,000 square
So
feet,
on an
what would be the
acre-
largest?
You could have 8 on an acre, 8 units on an acre,
Mm-hmm,
8 units on 1 acre above a business.
mm-hmm.
That seems like a lot, no?
Seems like a lot.
So if you had 5,000 square feet,
So Northford storage is
You're
for,
talking, if you have 5,000 square feet, you're talking about actually having a bedroom and a living room with a kitchen combination. It's kind of like,
So the 5,000 square feet is just what would be required on the lot, on the parcel, per multiple dwelling units. So you would need at least 5,000 square feet in order to have one one apartment.
so an acre is 40,000.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
So
I'm
then
just
you
trying
could
to think.
have,
Divided by
so then you
5,
could
you get
have
8.
8, that's, you
get
could have,
8 in an acre.
assuming that you meet East Shore
Yes.
House
wait, how do you
and
get,
parking.
let me see, how do you get back to, how do you get 8?
You have to have, I was saying 40,000 square feet is an acre,
Right.
divided by 5,000 gives you 8 units. You
Yeah,
can
but
have
then
8
Oh,
units.
so you're saying.
You can have 8 units.
Yeah, so you can have a.
5,000 square units will
Right,
is
so you
an
can have the
acre.
business on the bottom, and you can have 8 of those
As
5,000
long as you
square
have
feet with the apartment.
40,000
Yeah,
square feet. But like you said, meeting and all the other things too.
Yeah, there's a
That's
lot,
just-
yeah, yeah.
that At least just meets this to begin. Number
Yeah.
1 is checked.
Again,
Then you gotta meet the health department and other things.
yeah, exactly, yes.
don't they, even with this, don't they have to meet requirements for handicap?
Yeah, I'll ask the building official.
Yeah,
I didn't ask that, but I'll.
I mean,
I think if it's less
Certain
than,
amount.
that's how I think Northford Store
That's,
got around
right,
that.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
mean,
a,
it's
a
5.
total square footage it could be of the building.
Yeah.
Because, the other question that came up at the EDC was, are they required to have sprinklers? And that's dependent on the size of the building. So if you look at where like Supreme Seafood is, that's another building where, in my opinion, I think that would be great to allow for apartments on the second floor. But if they do that, because it's so big, I think it's 10,000 square feet. If the building is 10,000 square feet or greater, then they have to provide sprinklers.
Sprinklers, yeah.
So that could be cost prohibitive for them to do that.
well, at one point, they did try to do apartments up there,
That's what I heard.
and it never went over. And then, I don't know if they even had that many businesses upstairs, so they certainly
It's
could
complete,
use,
right.
you know, the revenue there, and,
Well,
One of
and
the
I
issues with
talked
parking-
with-
One of the issues over there was parking too.
Really?
I thought it was because,
Okay.
I thought it was because I think when they actually, Supreme Seafood or some business went in there, they have kind of reconfigure, because the number of tables and stuff like that, so parking was always tight over there. I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Okay.
Can't recall.
I don't know
But
if
I-
the back of the building is accessible for parking.
I'm not sure.
I talked with Dave Palumbo to find out about his building, because I think that was the driver for the text amendment to allow for dwellings on the second floor and business zones. And he said that both of his units are full, there's been a lot of demand, people are inquiring, and those are just one bedroom
And where are those?
units. On the East Haven, North Branford
Yeah.
line.
I mean, one thing is, yeah, you gotta clarify the regulation, but
And maybe 5,000 is too
Yeah.
low.
Too dense, I think it's good.
Too dense.
Yeah,
So 10 is.
5 and 5,000, that's way too dense.
Yeah, but that's saying that the building is 4,000, 40.
5,000.
No,
No, the area, right?
The land,
The land.
the
Oh, the
property.
whole land.
The
It's an
property,
acre,
not
yeah.
the building,
Not the
right, the
Oh.
land,
oh, that's
For which
tight.
one? For 5,000?
right. 5 or 10 or 20, it's the land, so,
Land.
let me find a good
Yeah, the
example.
building's not gonna be as big as the land.
An acre is 40,000,
Yeah, but that can't happen, 'cause
so
Okay.
40,000 divided by 5,000 gives you 8, you could have 8 units.
So like, if you look at that one that I
But it also
circled there.
depends on the size of the building.
No, it doesn't.
Sure it
We're
does.
not-
You
Well,
can't.
the building,
Well,
right,
what's,
so
what's
just
driving
because-
the maximum number is the acreage, but obviously then you have to fit a
Yeah,
building
'cause you
and put
could
apartments
keep
on
going
top,
up
so
in
there are
levels.
limitations too.
But you would
There
be
are,
maxed
but-
out at
Yeah.
35 feet.
Yeah.
So if you look at this on this one here, that's the one with Essex, right? So this parcel
Okay, okay.
is
Where's the parcel?
0.3 tenths,
Beach Street is right here.
0.3 tenths of an acre, so it's, I think it's 13,000 square feet.
Hmm.
So the
The whole parcel.
20,000,
the whole parcel's 13, I mean,
Thousand square feet.
13,000 square feet.
15,000. Okay, wow,
So
so it's not
what
even-
size is the building?
It's not even a half acre.
the building, the footprint of the building is 1,800 square feet, and there's 2 floors.
Okay, so there's 900, 900. And how many
So-
apartments is he looking to?
Well, so just to walk through the scenario,
Okay.
so at 20,000 square feet per dwelling unit, you couldn't have any.
Right.
At 10,000 square feet per dwelling unit, you could have 1. At 5,000, you could have 2.
So he had 450 square feet.
How do you come up with the one, though? How can you only have one?
If the
If
requirement is
it's
10,000
10, you
square
have
feet, and he has
13,000.
13,000.
You can only
For the
have one.
parcel, that's the set.
He meets 10, but he doesn't meet 20, so he can only have one.
Oh, one building, but he can have
One
multiple.
apartment.
Yeah,
One
but I'm
apart-
trying to find out where that is in the regulation that says that.
No, I'm walking through these different scenarios, so
I
right
know.
now it's 20. Well, or 10.
And where
Yeah.
does where does it say, but I'm saying, let's say it was 10. Let's say it was
Okay,
10.
okay,
Where
okay.
does it say it's only one apartment
Yep.
per 10,000?
So it says lots in the B2, B3 district shall contain not less than 20,000 square feet for each dwelling unit.
Oh,
Each is
I'm
the
sorry
one.
for the 20.
This is
yeah,
20,000,
I'm-
so
I'm-
he can't
yeah.
even have one.
I was
in
thinking
that.
the dwelling unit is, never mind.
Yeah.
I got you.
So, and now
But
I'm
here it
just.
says 10, so he
Right,
could
so
have
if
one.
we change this narrative to match the table, then that would say 10. And then
Yeah,
I'm just
so
walking
he
through
could
a
have
third
one.
scenario of 5,000
Okay.
square feet.
So he could have 2 450 square foot apartments,
If that was 5,000.
if that was 450 square feet.
No,
And
no, no,
the
it would be,
eight-
it
and
would
the
be more than
900
that, because the footprint is.
feet, you're gonna put 2,
I thought you said it was
No,
900 per
well.
floor.
It was, the footprint,
It's very
the
small.
footprint is
1,800?
1,800.
Oh, it's 1,800, not 900, yeah. So it's 1,800, so 900.
but it's 900
Two
on the
900
second
square
floor.
foot.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
What is our, what's the maximum for our accessory dwelling, living in an apartment?
750,
Okay.
or 1/3 of the,
Well, no, I'm just,
Yep.
let's go
Yep.
to 700, all right. So, can we base it off of that?
I think,
So,
I always like
let's say-
aligning our regs to our other regs.
Yeah, so if we're saying, so that accessory dwelling is 750 square feet, that's basically an apartment for an in-law or whatever. So maybe that side, maybe we can work off the 750 and work backwards to come up with a number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes
yes,
sense.
but
I think what's
the
happening too is-
building
oh.
size is going to change depending on each
Yeah,
parcel.
Exactly.
Right.
You
That
could-
building is just 1,800 square feet
Yeah.
because that's what fits on that
You
parcel.
could meet your minimum setbacks and put maximum size
No,
building
but
in.
back to Fran's point, we
And
could say
You
coverage.
that.
could have,
And co-
yeah.
But maybe to Fran's point, we could say, you could say the minimum of an apartment.
Oh, I see.
Because if you did
Okay.
with Fran's scenario, it was like, if there was 2 apartments, it'd be 400 square feet.
And you could fit,
You know,
Right.
that's kinda small, but if
Okay.
you say it's a minimum,
I mean,
a minimum.
regardless, you have to have kitchen,
Yeah.
even if it's not a a whole kitchen. You have to have a kitchen, you have to have a bathroom,
Yep,
have
Yep.
to have, unless
Yep.
you're talking about a living room sleep-in.
Right.
Yep.
There's a,
no, that,
there's a
yeah,
But I don't-
studio apartments, which
Yep.
I don't think you really want.
right.
And you're talking about one bedroom. What's the smallest one bedroom could possibly be?
So I think, I guess I think. it's
So
750.
minimum 750?
I'm just throwing a number out there because that's what we already have. And Fran, I love studios because when you vacuum, you just keep on going back and forth. You don't have to go around the doors and, you know, it's all.
I never lived in one, so I can't relate.
And if you get one of those little machines that do it for you.
So minimum, is that what we're always concerned about, the minimum, and not the maximum, right?
Well, no, we don't want, the maximum to have what, 2
Well, if somebody
bedrooms?
wants, if he wants to put if somebody wants to put a 1,700 square foot apartment up there.
Sure, but how many
No, we're
bedrooms
not-
are we gonna
we're not
limit?
just
Oh, no, no,
talking this-
we
this
won't,
is
we
gen-
don't get into the bedroom, let them market themselves, they wanna do 3 bedrooms, you have a family there, and a family wants to live upstairs, which I don't really perceive, you know, if they have kids, that you wanna live, be upstairs of a business, in a business zone, but I mean, it's possible. But let them decide on the number of bed, you know,
So
let them.
a 2 acre. So we're just getting rid of that. What are we doing? So we're getting rid of the lot coverage, the lot dimension, driving it? It's gonna be a
No, still,
minimum
you still
seven.
need-
No,
still
that,
the
you,
lot
you
dimension.
could still have
10,000.
both. You could have
Yeah.
the 10,000.
Oh, yeah, I don't wanna change
10,000,
that,
okay.
yeah.
Or-
10,000
Okay,
or
so
20,000?
if
10,000?
it's 10,000, and you say that the minimum apartment you could put in is 750,
You can only put one in,
right,
at that one particular example,
yeah.
right.
So
So
you're
if-
still
So
back,
it
you're
have
still
to
back
be-
to an 1,800 square foot apartment that it's bigger than 750, but now it's 1,800, so it still has the dilemma that we came to this point
But then we,
of saying, is that really reasonable to limit to 1,800?
but then
I
we're
mean-
falling into the trap of we're having one situation drive our reg.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, no. I'm
But I
just
know-
using
I
that
know
as
he's-
a,
No, I know,
that
but
as
it's
a
easy,
scenario.
it's
if
easy
you
to
don't
slip
want-
into that, and that seems like
No, I'm
this
just,
happened
I'm
twice
just
already
saying
on
that,
this
so the
reg.
reality is, though, you could have 19, you could have, 10,000s, it's 10,000.
Mm-hmm,
Right.
that's one option, yeah.
Keep that thought going.
I forgot what
Okay.
I was trying to think, I was gonna say if we had 19,999,
here's another-
you could still only have one apartment.
Here's
That-
another.
That would translate to this
Well, how would you
enormous
only,
apartment.
how would you only have one though?
750 is 1,500.
But we're still using this lot dimension too, the 10,000.
Yeah,
We're just saying you can't go smaller than 750, but
Right.
this lot dimension's gonna limit you too.
No, because are we still having 5 dwelling units and,
no,
Well,
that's,
Or
It's
do you
up to
want,
you.
or do you
I
want to
feel we're
waive?
starting to slip down this
Okay.
cyclical thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
We're gonna start
still.
spinning around saying the same thing.
Oh, no, right.
Are we saying still 10,000?
Well, 10,001.
We haven't
let's just
decided.
base it on that right now.
so can I,
So
So
if I had a 1 acre lot, that's 40,000. If it's 10,000, I can have 4 units.
Correct.
The minimum is 750 per, right?
Yep.
yes.
So I wonder how big of a building you can put on an acre. You could,
I know what you're saying.
yeah, I'm just trying to
Because
think
you could buy
from
just
a
to build.
practical standpoint.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a business on the
So
bottom.
coverage, so if you think about just 10% coverage, so
Right.
that's 4,000 square feet of a footprint, which
Takes one
is
down.
rare, you know, that you're going to have that. So then,
You only have 3, you can only fit 3 on there at that point.
right, then say each
Yeah.
floor is
guess
4,000
that's-
square feet, then, yeah, then that's,
if you
If you
had,
have 4,000 square feet, you can have
you could have
5.
close to 4.
units.
Oh,
No, no, no,
4,000
no.
divided by 750, right?
Mm-hmm.
4,000 square feet divided by 750 is 5.33333.
That's 5 units per acre.
So I actually think we should forget the application in front of us and just work off of what do we want to do.
We want to allow
well, I
for
think,
apartments
Businesses,
above business
businesses.
Not being too restrictive, but not also not
Yeah, getting too
Not
dense.
allowing, yeah,
Well,
17 units on a little tiny.
You're gonna agree
building.
that it should be 10,000 square feet, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, does it make sense?
Well, how many beats
We're
do a
mixing,
beat
see, where
three?
we're
or
getting,
the-
where I'm getting confused, is we're blending now a square footage minimum with this lot dimension. And that's not a one-to-one relationship.
But yeah, well.
But I don't disagree with it, if we wanna say
Well, actually, wait, you know
seven
what?
fifty is
On,
reasonable,
on the table,
minimum.
Well, I do think we have to control
I think we
density in
already
some way,
have-
so however that's done.
minimum floor area in square feet.
Oh, yeah.
Each dwelling unit in a it says not applicable. So why is that not applicable?
Minimum
Oh, wait,
floor
here,
area in
600.
square feet.
Oh,
It's
so-
already in
Okay.
there.
Hey, you're close.
600.
What's the one above it, though?
Places
Minimum floor
before
area square
us.
feet on ground floor is 800. So you're right, in between 600
But
and
I,
850 almost.
I don't think that's allowed on ground level.
No.
So
What's
wait,
I
that?
don't know
minimum
why that's in
floor
there.
on ground floor is.
No, I think it's just
Okay,
saying
so
the ground level.
600, is that
Oh,
too small?
for building, no, but,
Minimum
Where is
floor
it?
area in square feet.
oh, that's just not,
On ground
gotcha,
floor.
that's just for business use,
Each dwelling.
not,
Oh, okay,
not
yeah,
dwelling.
right, yeah.
So
No, it
each
does-
dwelling
no, it
unit,
does
yeah,
that. On ground
each
floor
dwelling
for
unit,
each
multiple
dwelling.
dwellings, 600.
Oh, yeah, already, R40. It's 99 and then it drops down.
But this, I'm just saying that this on ground floor
Hmm.
for each dwelling should be NA. Because it says in the,
It's not even allowed,
It
dwelling
says in the
units aren't
regu-
allowed on the ground floor.
right.
So we can fix that while we're at it, why not?
1, 2, 3. Yeah, they're not,
So we're reading this,
not applicable.
right
for
now
No,
it's-
no,
B1,
no,
so that's
all
fine,
I
too.
think it's saying is that the business has to be the same size as, the minimum of the business has to be 800 square feet, and the apartment has to be 800 feet, 800 square feet.
no, I have 600 on mine. Where are you
Yeah,
getting?
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you getting 800,
The-
600?
No, I'm saying the
business
ground
is
floor, the
ground
business,
floor is
the
above it.
ground floor of the business has to be 800.
Yeah,
And then the apartment above has to be
Yeah.
600.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be changed. I mean,
No, cause dwelling means to live.
I don't,
Right.
yeah, it could be, these, depending on when these were written, but the dwelling could be mean the business.
Well, so maybe we should just clarify that.
Yeah.
On ground floor, just not for each dwelling, but,
Yeah.
Cause you gotta remember, when it says dwelling to it, it's also under the R, it's under the Rs. So it could have been talking about that as well as when they use the word dwelling, but let's change that to clarify that. But we need to make sure that it, for the R40 and R80 zones, could it be the main dwelling on the floor and then an apartment on top? Right?
no,
No,
because we
you
don't
can't,
allow
you're
multiple
right, you're not allowed,
dwellings.
so I'm not sure even what it
No.
has here. I don't even know why it has it in here,
Yeah, cause
under
there's
the
an
R40 and R80.
Well, there, it's just
Those
the
are
minimum
residential.
floor area for residential.
Residential, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
You
a
gotta look under
home
the
has to be
Bs.
at least 900 square feet.
Yeah.
and the only thing you have to do is
Huh.
have to correct the B1.
That's
Yeah,
really
the B
weird.
word, right.
Yeah.
Right,
Yep,
which would also be 600.
Right,
okay,
so,
good.
so 600
10,000.
and 10,000,
Okay.
Are we still going with a 4,000 square foot building?
Well, that's, would be depending on your acreage, and if you could fit it
4,000.
in.
Is that the maximum? You said,
Yes.
we came up with 4,000 because that's the maximum coverage on an acre, correct?
40,000.
No, of the
10,000.
building.
Oh, of the building.
Oh, the building, yeah.
How big of a building can you build on an acre? What's the maximum?
So for coverage, right, it would be 4,000.
4,000. So
But that's
That's in
already,
the
that's
regular-
covered
that's
in
No, I'm
here.
just saying, so it would be
Section.
4,000
Well,
divided by
sorry, you know what?
600.
So that's for residentially zoned. If you look at, on 8 on that chart, maximum lot coverage by buildings as percent of lot area. On B1, B2, B3, it's all 25%.
5%.
So if you have 40,000, you got 10,000.
10,000.
That's 10,000.
There's our number.
It's like a math problem.
Yeah.
It's like that, you know,
Now it makes
what's that math
sense.
joke?
But
If we
now
all
it
give a
makes
dollar
sense.
No, it
and,
is 10,000.
Now there's, yes, there's
Yeah, so Bill, with your
justification.
example with the 4 on an acre, you can't do it because of the coverage.
I know,
All
see?
right, thank you. But that was, you put us through a good math
Yeah,
challenge.
exactly, I don't do math.
I don't think this
It's
was,
a rule.
I don't think this would fall under Common Core. I think
So-
this would be
Yeah.
intense. I think this would be something on like a standardized testing
the application of skill.
Okay,
So now the big question is, for those of you who are here, when this change was made in 2014, or no, maybe not, yeah, 2014.
Yeah, it was made in 2014.
So was D changed on purpose to say lots in the B2, B3
That's my
district
question.
shall contain not less than 20,000 square feet for each?
The way it reads is it's supposed to be 20, but it wasn't
I
changed
think
in the
the only
chart.
change, when I looked at
I
the
don't know.
chart, or the
Oh, yeah,
file,
that's
the only
for a
change that
specific
occurred
thing.
was adding B1.
This is
I don't recall.
MVP
I might not
district,
have
though.
been
This is a
here.
specific district, right? That's why. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that's my question too. How
So-
come
so that means you
B1's
would
not under
need-
D?
That means you would need
I don't know.
at least 2 acres, right? Am I doing the math right?
No, 2 acres for what?
If it was 20,000 square feet, you would need to have
2 acre, 20, yeah, 80,
For the 20,000 square foot dwelling,
80%,
right?
I mean 20% of it.
Say that again?
So if you had 2 acres, which
Yeah.
is 80,000,
Yeah,
so this would be limited in anything in B1, B2, if it was 20,000 square feet,
maybe
it
that's where
would
they
be
got the number
limited
from.
to anything less than 2 acres.
No,
You'd have to have 2 acres to have.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where the 20,000's from. They're just
If
going with
it's
2 acres.
25% coverage, it would be 20,000 square feet.
Yeah,
So it would limit to any B1, B2, B3 less than 2,
I don't think that 25%,
applies?
right, so it's 20,000 square feet, like, before you put a building on it. You don't subtract out the building, is that?
no, I think,
No, I'm saying the maximum you could put in 2 acres would be 20,000 square foot.
Okay, for coverage.
I think
Right,
that's,
the maximum coverage would be, the maximum
Yeah.
coverage of 20,000 square
25%,
feet,
yeah.
you would need 2 acres
yeah,
or
Right.
more.
Yeah,
So what I'm saying is that anything
That's
of
where
an
that number came
acre
from.
cannot do 20,000 square feet. That's what I'm saying, maybe this
no,
was the
no,
limited.
no, but I think the parcel size, so if you have
2 acres,
2 acres,
the maximum coverage
then
is
you could have, if you're going with,
25% of that.
if you're going with the 20,000 square feet per dwelling unit, then you would have 4
dwelling units.
4 dwelling
You couldn't
units.
do over 25%.
No, I don't think the 25% comes into play. You don't subtract out the coverage. It's whatever the parcel size is.
Okay, because you mentioned just 25% coverage.
You can have 4
I
units.
thought you just mentioned 25%
They can only,
coverage.
they have the minimum 600 square feet.
Right,
As long
but
as that
that-
building doesn't
But
turn
if they
into
can fit,
25%.
if they can fit those 4 units
and
in that
25.
coverage, in that
Yeah,
building, and
exactly.
meet coverage
Mhm.
requirements, but the number of units
Separate
isn't
ones.
connected to the coverage.
I'm not talking about, yeah, not the units. I got you, I got you.
No, but are you onto something though? Because 25% of 80,000 is 20,000, so,
Mhm.
That limits the number of units.
Right. No, the unit cannot be bigger than 20,000, so you can put roughly 3, you can fit 4 of them in it.
4 and a 2 acre.
Right.
Provided, but it's gotta be, the unit has to be 600 square feet. And then
Again,
that, if the resulting building is more than 25% coverage, then you can't have it.
The,
You have to be
All right, so what
smaller.
I think we're getting at it here is,
Yeah.
we need to rewrite this. I think more than just the 10,000. I mean, if,
What else would be helpful for me? I know it's a challenging concept, for me to provide.
also,
Early morning and a cup of coffee.
I mean,
Yeah.
this keeps referring to,
I know.
I can't think right now.
I know.
if this also keeps referring to this multiple business parcels, we can't even establish what that really means to us.
Hmm. That's true. So I'm wondering
Well-
if, it seems like a separate district, right?
It
Really,
is,
It's
yeah,
like- it's
the
in here.
mixed,
Right.
mixed
Where?
business
Right here.
park,
so the second to last one.
Right.
It's not applicable right now. It's a non-applicable
So,
20,000, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that says, wait a minute,
575 square feet minimum.
I still think, I'd like to know what
so
What's that? What
mixed business,
parcel that is.
mixed business park, I believe, is like a floating zone. It's like that age-restricted housing district.
A floating zone?
Mm-hmm. So I'll read this, I'll copy this and send it to you. So it's section 42.5.9. So it talks about certain uses allowed in the chart, and it said, uses shall be located on properties having frontage on and primary access to a state highway. It talks about on-site parking.
Oh, so this is limited even more. 'Cause it's MVP.
It's,
Why does he feel, okay, I know
Is
we're
he
not
an
getting-
MVP technically?
We're not getting specific to this person. Is he in this floating zone?
no. As far as I know, I don't.
Well, it
this
says
is-
and, it's
this
B1, B2,
exists-
B3,
Yeah,
and.
so, look, yeah, so,
So it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
he doesn't have to be in the that MVP.
No.
Right.
He's in B1 though, right? So
Right.
he needs, because there's nothing allowing
Right.
in B1. So we have to clarify that at least.
So I think if we're gonna rewrite it, we need to just start from scratch versus trying to fit round pegs or square holes, because I think we're trying to back ourselves in with what's already here versus if we're gonna redo it, then try not to think about what's already here. Just try to do what just makes sense.
Okay, so also, we have to look at C where it says, there should be no more than 5 dwelling units in any building and restricted to 1 bedroom.
Right.
So you gotta decide whether,
So like, so if we were, so.
so it doesn't matter how big the building is. I mean, it just seems like it's contradicting itself.
Yeah. Like if we were to bump the minimum area up from 600 to 750, then it's 5 dwelling units in 10,000 square feet. 'Cause then if you have like the maximum of the 4,000 square foot building, but again, I think we're backing ourselves up by trying to work with what's here.
Mhm.
And if we're just gonna rewrite, then let's just think anew. Versus trying to somehow fix this puzzle.
You know, I thought when we just did this floating, the one we just did, I thought that was the only one we had. Now all of a sudden, we've got another one.
Well, I think that's been the mixed business park district. It's been in the regulations
But
for a
never
long
used.
time, but
I guess
never
so.
used.
I don't think it's ever been used.
Never used.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Mm-hmm.
So, the minimum, again with my, what is a lot? So in the table, minimum lot area per multiple dwelling unit, what is lot referring to? A lot is an acre, or the lot is the 10,000 square feet? Cause like, who brought up acres and why? Not that I want that question answered.
It was just the easiest.
It was just an easy way to do the
Yeah.
calculations.
So at the end of the day, the piece of land / lot we're talking about, the land, the lot is 10,000 square feet, or 20,000 square feet, which we're
Right.
deciding on. So, I have to get acres out of my head, cause that's,
So
Right.
10,000
So-
square feet, the 25% coverage is 4,000.
no,
I'm sorry.
Coverage
the-
doesn't matter.
it's
2,500.
2,500, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there some reason, or is there some reason why we don't want this in B1? Because
It's not in there, yeah,
another
it's not
way,
in C.
but maybe, it seems like there was a reason, because
It's not in there.
it's not in there, and
It's-
everything else, everything is fine, actually, right?
What's
So
B1
here-
for?
Except for that one, there's one error. There's one error that, this is just a clerical error, this B1 is listed in the MDP area. If you remove that, nothing's wrong.
No, I think so. I think
It's
the
still the
opposite.
10 and 20.
I think that multiple dwelling units in B1. I think that's correct. B2, B3, because as I mentioned, the Dave Palumbo's parcel. This is East Haven, North Branford. This is their land where they wanted
It's
to
a
put,
B1.
residential over business. That's, I think, the project that was driving that text amendment. So I think that the change that was made, where it says effective 7/17/14, with that little cross, they added in B1, B2, B3, or maybe, I'll double check this. Maybe they just added in B1, and then it was just never changed on the table.
Right.
Meaning they meant 20, but didn't change
Meaning
it to 20 on the
it
table.
just says NA here, but I think that should have been changed to 10,000.
Should just align with the other two then.
Right, but it's still, there's still the issue of there's 10,000 under B2, B3, but then in the text here, it says lots in the B2, B3 district shall contain
if you
not
go
less
with-
than
they
No,
just-
one.
because
I think
now
they
you're
just
referring to
didn't.
this though. This is just if it's standard B1, B2, B3. But if you're in the BPP, then it changes to 20,000.
No, but
That's
it
all I'm
said,
saying, right?
no,
That's how
because
I'm
it says
reading
here,
that.
in the BP district only, the lot shall contain not less than 20,000 square feet. Lots in the B2, B3 district shall contain not less than 20,000.
Same thing.
It's the same thing.
And, wait a
Well,
minute,
that's what I'm
Just
saying,
clarify.
it should have said,
um,
you know, I mean,
If
if
you-
it would make sense if it said 20,000 squares for the MBP district, but then lots in B1, B2, B3 shall be 10,000.
but
Yeah,
on
that's
the, on
what-
the chart, it does say that the MVP has to be a
20,000.
minimum lot of 40,000.
Right,
okay,
lot, but then if you
With a
go,
minimum, dwelling units of 20,000, so
Right.
that follows.
right, so that follows that. But there's still the conflict of lots in the B2, B3 is 20, but
Yeah,
then
so
it's table.
on this,
it's 10.
it seems to me that when they corrected it, they just didn't correct the B1 where it says NA, that it should have said 10,000.
I
Right,
see
but-
it
But also on
differently,
D, but
yeah.
also in D, it has to be changed too.
It has to be fixed there too.
Right, whereas, and it has to include B1, B2, B1, and also change it from 20 to 10,000.
Which
That's,
Wait a
we know,
minute.
that's,
Kinda
we know
goes
that.
back to
That's when we
Trish's
started.
comment about
Wait a minute.
maybe we should
But that's
just
where- but-
step back and say,
Yeah.
what do we want?
That's where we started, Fran, that's exactly where we started, where we just came back full circle, so, I mean, I know,
I
this,
told you
this
we were
this is a
going
tough
down
one.
cyclic
So
path.
that, so just to go back, the whole thing that's driving this
Not
is
going
D. Okay, D is the problem.
Correct.
Because it should say B1 and 10,000 was probably what the intention was, but it was never changed.
I see the intention
somewhere.
differently. If this effective date was 7/17/14, I'm thinking, not that I know which way we're going and thinking about this anew, that the table should say 20, not 10. Because the last time the table was changed is,
But it
The
was
only-
amended then,
Yeah,
and
all right,
it was
so-
amended
But
to
Trish, just,
the
Why is this
10,000.
table?
just to also point this out, so where the asterisks are is
Yes.
usually the line where the change occurred. So if you look down on A,
okay.
you see the asterisks next to the changes, and there's no asterisks on D.
Oh,
Right,
I got you. So
so,
we don't know what happened, so that's why we just have
Yeah.
to like,
Right.
it's scratch it and what
all right.
is best for the businesses in the town now.
So, and, well, maybe I shouldn't bring this up.
Just do it, you might as well. Put fuel on the fire.
Just to show another example, and this is my intention of printing out all these different, like, areas of town where we have apartments. So this parcel on the East Haven line, it's, 5.36 acres, but there's only 2 apartments there. And there are 2 different buildings, actually maybe even 3 buildings. So that just goes to show, on the 5.36 acres, if you go with the 20,000 square feet, they could have, what would that be?
Much
1,
more.
2, 3 units, right? They could only have 3 units. And they have 2, but there's 2 buildings.
Yeah, that's why I think,
5.6 acres, they could have quite a few, right?
Sorry, right, they could
Yeah.
have double that. They could have 6. They could have
Is it-
6.
so, and that begs the question,
Yeah,
do
they
we,
could have
like,
2 on 1, right? 2 on 1 acre. So 5, they could have 10, right? 40,000.
Yeah,
if you-
yes.
You'd have 2.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, you'd have 10 units.
You'd have 10.
10.6,
Right,
maybe 11.
right.
units.
Right.
11 units.
No, 11 structures with a business on below
11.
and a unit on top.
You know, 11
you
apartment
could have 11
units.
apartments.
You, you actually could have one that was probably a two-bedroom and the other was one bedroom. That
You
would
could have
take up
11 units.
Of one bedrooms.
But then now why are we talking
Yeah,
about,
because we're saying one.
okay, so acres, so then you're doing the 10 or 20,000 into the number of acres.
Into the number of acres. Coverage has nothing to do with it.
So that's why I just think,
I don't think
Just
there's
need to
that
look at it
much to
fresh.
correct. I think it's just a matter of fixing the B1 here and over here. Everything else is just,
no, because we
It's
still
the
have
way-
the problem of the 10,000 or the 20,000. That is
In
the problem.
MVP, it's 20,000. If it's not, it's 10,000.
yeah,
B2,
but you're not
B3
talking
or
about that. The
10,000.
MVP, it's, you have to have a 40,000 square feet
I'm just-
lot
Parcel.
area and 20,000 units. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing that was handled wrong or miswritten is this one. It shouldn't be NA, and it should be included in here.
All I was saying was, I think this over here is referring to if these are in this, and you have to go to the higher 20. But if it's by itself, it can be 10.
That's another perspective.
That's how I'm reading it.
That's a floating zone, though.
It's a
That's the-
floating
That's the way
zone.
the floating zone works.
That's the way the floating.
If you're in
zone
the,
is. So
yeah.
If you floated
So
over the
you
B1,
could be-
B1,
Yeah,
B2 and B3, which is normally 10, but if it's floated over, now it's 20. That's what that's
yeah,
saying.
if you fit, if you,
Everything's great except the B1 has to be changed to 10,600, right?
Oh, so
Meaning
you're
you're-
saying that's a different perspective.
that's,
Sorry, Robert.
what's that?
Then there's really, the only correction is putting B1 in here.
Right, the only correction would be the B1 and then change it to 10,000.
No, he's saying you wouldn't change it
No,
to
you
10.
would,
Yeah, you have to
Yeah,
change,
this
You have
has
to
to
change
be,
you have to change
This
it
has to be
10,600.
right. No,
And every,
Trish, what
and then
what
over
he's saying
here
is
has to
that
be added.
if you fall in on a state road, and there's probably some other things in there, then if you're in whether you're I2 or, if you're in B1, B2, or B3, and you come up to a state road, then you fall under this
MVP.
you fall under that where you can go to the higher numbers.
No, that's what I'm saying then, there's
Yeah.
nothing to fix.
Which is more
Well,
restrictive.
yeah,
Just the B1.
And the 10,000.
Why would the 10,000 need to be
Because
fixed?
if you're not on a state road, it's only 10,000. It should only be 10,000 if you're not, there's
So
other
there would have to
factors.
be another line.
No, I just have to say B1,
it's just,
B2, B3 is
these
10,000.
just have to be corrected, that's all.
Because it says right in D that the first one is 20,000, and then it should say B1, B2, and B3, and then it shouldn't be 20, it should be 10.
Right.
That's.
And
but
it should
the
be lots
conversa-
B1,
Right.
B2,
So
B3.
that's the changes that Carrie
And
is
not
kind of
less than
recommending.
10.
We took this a whole different direction and started looking at, the apartment size and stuff like that. Just to come around full circle
I mean,
again.
I think that's the only correction that needs to be made, because otherwise it falls in.
Do we need-
And
do
as
we
far
need to
as
decide
this,
the apartment?
Casa
Oh, we already have it.
Vitra,
I have to,
he can put one unit in,
right,
because he's got the 10,000 square
Right.
feet.
right.
So
So-
that solves all the problems.
I'll draft,
A public hearing notice?
do you want me to, well, no, I'll draft the application first, because I wanna
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
okay with
Yeah.
the application, the language, and then we'll set a public hearing date and everything.
Do we have any?
We don't have to have,
Is
we
it
have a
worth going
public
to the
hearing
minutes
on
with the
what?
minutes?
Text amendment.
Give
A
us
text
any,
amendment has
yeah,
a public
Yeah,
hearing.
it can't hurt.
January, or July
Even though it's
Can't
not
hurt.
really a
2014?
text
Yeah.
amendment,
Yeah, it
is it?
is. Yeah, we're making, anytime you change any wording in our regulations, it's a public hearing.
We might be able to discern something.
I'll
from
get the meeting
minutes.
minutes
What's
too
that?
from
Meeting-
July
meeting
of
minutes from July
2014.
2014, when we did this
Oh,
amendment.
that'd be
I don't
interesting.
think I was here, though.
Sure.
I was.
No,
Oh,
remember,
yeah,
I was
yeah,
gone
that's
for a
right.
while. I don't know when I was gone. I think it's 3 years in April, so then it was 4 years. I don't recall. Too long ago.
Okay, thank you. Isn't that fun?
I love that.
Planning.
Okay, what's next
I
on
don't-
this short meeting that we're?
I know, it was
Who
supposed to
said
be
that? That was the
short.
wrong, that was the
I
wrong thing
know.
to say.
I don't have any updates on the plan of conservation and development. I still have to wait until the state sets the budget, so then the town can look at the capital improvement plan, and then hopefully we'll be allocated the $50,000, and then we'll do the RFP, which has to go before town council, and so it's a ways off, but hopefully this winter, we'll start that.
When does this have to be? Oh,
2019.
July of 2019.
Okay. Now, we're having a public hearing
Yes,
on next meeting
October 5th, yes.
for this,
Temporary
Temporary,
healthcare
yeah.
structures. Right, so I went to town council on Tuesday
Yeah, I
and
heard.
just to prep them, to
Yeah.
let them know, because if, as a result of the public hearing, you vote to opt out, they also need to opt out
Right.
in order for it to go through. So I just wanted to
So
let
that's
them know.
next meeting?
Yep.
Yes, on the 5th.
Who's here next meeting?
Okay.
Me.
I'm here. Okay, well,
All right, I might not be here, but our zoning officer
Is that
will be
allowed?
here.
No.
I know.
I'm
well,
not
who's
here on the
gonna speak on this behalf of,
Oh,
So Tom, our zoning officer, is on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Killingworth, so he's up on all of this.
we'll manage, yeah, we'll be fine.
oh, I'm not worried.
Sorry, I'm traveling to Portland,
There's
Oregon,
certain people that come to the meeting.
the next
they
day, and I'm
open-
flying out of Boston, so.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be people that'll come that'll have much to say, and we'll just have to listen, to see
Yeah, that's all, it's.
what everybody's
It's pretty easy.
thoughts are.
Right, and just so you know, I'm on this planner's listserv, which I think I've talked about. There are at least 10 towns that are also holding public hearings to opt out, and then
Mhm.
10 other towns that are kind of not sure what to do, and maybe about 5 towns that are just not gonna do anything right now, they're just
I mean,
gonna
we're-
kind of wait it
Our
out.
public hearing's not whether to opt out or to do a regulation, it's to get public input.
Right,
And can we have copies of our regs for the public, of
Yes.
accessory dwelling units?
yes, absolutely.
For the public?
they're online.
Yeah, but. you say
And no,
that to
that's a
somebody
good
as we're
point.
trying to hear them out, that's
Um,
not gonna go over well.
That I'll make sure that there's something on the website about the public hearing. And maybe even get something in the newspaper. Okay, then the
We mean,
last,
Like Tucket Times or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
Pam Johnson's usually good about covering those stories, so. Under other items, I have an application, what's that? Sorry. So this is a parcel, the address is, this is an address correction that I'm recommending. So the parcel is 1195 Middletown Avenue. And right now, it's
33 Indian Hill Road to me.
farmed.
I know what you're talking about.
It's farmland, there's one barn on there, but it's mainly used for farming. The property owner is looking to build a home, so one single-family home, but have access off of Indian Hill Road.
Well, I don't even know where, I'm lost here.
So, this is off of
You need
Totucket
that?
Road.
Does he need that?
Oh, you said Middletown Road?
Well,
Avenue.
that's what's confusing.
Yeah, okay, all right,
Exactly.
so, all
That's,
right.
that's exactly
So
the
I
need for
just-
the address change.
You don't have to go any further.
So you have Middletown Avenue,
Yeah.
you have Totucket, and then Indian Hill. The parcel has an address of 1195 Middletown Avenue. It's about 15 acres in
That's
size.
where the, what was it, the Bots Pizza?
Right, no,
That burned down.
Amados.
Amados. That burned down.
Oh, so I know where I know what farm that is, I know, okay.
So this
yeah,
is
yeah, I know where it
here.
is, yep.
Because there's no single-family home on the property right now, they don't have to subdivide it, they can just build a house
Right.
there. And they were worried about being able to still claim the majority of the land being used for farming, which the assessor said, yes, that's no problem, you
Wait a
know,
minute.
80% will be farmed and 20% will be single-family residence.
Whose lot is this?
Auger.
Isn't this is that water, that El Pat, whatever.
It
This
wa-
isn't-
That
it's
water
down
company's
further.
up here?
Yeah,
Down
and
here.
yeah,
This isn't Ferrara's land, is it?
No, this is Augers.
Yeah, the place is down.
Down here, okay.
Yeah, and that. All right, So, okay, so they wanna change, they wanna have access to the Indian Hill Road, right?
So what I'm recommending, because of where they
Yeah.
are proposing the single-family house, they're
Yeah.
going to have a driveway access onto Indian
Perfect.
Hill Road.
Yeah,
It's not an interior lot at this point, because they have frontage on Middletown Avenue and
Yeah.
Tucket Road, and their parcel size meets the requirements. But just for emergency purposes,
It'd be
I
easier,
think
yeah.
they need an Indian Hill Road address.
I agree.
But under the ordinance, the Planning and Zoning Commission approves address changes.
Yeah.
So,
Wait a minute, so
I'm trying to figure out where this is.
where, they
Here,
have
Fran, if you look
they
at
have
this-
access to
Look up here.
Middletown? Do they have access to Middletown? Via driveway?
There
No.
is a dirt driveway, I don't know, I mean, I don't know.
like, the topography is challenging for.
No, it's not.
an from a for a
Okay.
driveway. I think it would also exceed the distance, I didn't even check it, but it would be longer than the, I think it's 200 feet requirement for
Yeah, no, I-
Middletown for, like, police and
Yeah,
fire.
look, I mean, let's look at the, it's not whether they have access to Middletown or Tucket, it's
Where's
where the
piece
house.
that burned down? This piece?
No, over here. If you look at this, this zooms out farther. So this is, here's 22.
Right.
Totucket Road is right there. If you go around the curve, then here's the parcel.
Cornfields, right?
There's cornfields there, but this is the portion
That's
of the
it,
land.
that's that farm with you.
There's a barn on there. They have a lot of trucks. They have like a trucking business slash farm.
Okay. It makes sense because that's where the house is gonna be for emergency services. If you use the Middletown address or Tucket, there's no access to either one. The house is gonna be down there with the drive, I think that's
I
probably.
see what you mean, I thought you meant for emergency purposes, they can, the
No,
fire
no,
department
so
can access, I'm like, what are you talking
If you-
about?
No, if you call them up and say,
I
I
know,
got,
I know, yeah,
and
I
they come
understand
down
that, yeah,
here.
gotcha.
Yes, and if they're
Okay,
gonna
that-
access to Indian Hill Road, then they should have an Indian Hill Road address.
Mhm.
I think it's
So
good
he
for
wants to
everybody.
put his house here.
Yeah, right here, see? This is Indian Hill
So,
Road,
alright.
house is right here.
So do we need to vote on that?
Oh.
Okay.
So he wants, his address now is Middletown Avenue, but when the fire department gets called, like Harry was saying, they would show up here,
Yeah.
say, where the heck's this place?
So,
So we need to change the address.
right.
Does this, like, do neighbors need to know they're putting in a driveway, or does any of that have to be
No.
taken into consideration?
No.
No.
So I didn't.
Is this a,
Yeah,
is this a loop or?
It's a dead end.
It's a
No.
yeah,
Then-
it's right here, it's dead,
If you look
right
at,
there.
yeah.
Oh,
It's not a loop, it's not a cul-de-sac.
Well, this isn't, this is a driveway,
Yeah.
it doesn't extend the loop road. Now there's
Right,
limitations to a loop
right,
road, yeah.
no.
That's just a
And
driveway.
there's this farm road that actually does, so there's this existing building, and they could drive this way, but it's not paved.
Moving along.
So you don't have to read that whole thing, I would just say, motion
approve,
to
change the
change the
address.
address.
I move to. I move
You
to
move?
change
You going with Dave?
the address from 1195 Middletown Avenue, North Branford, Connecticut, to 33 Indian Hill Road, North Branford, Connecticut.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. That is everything that I have.
I'm not here on the 19th, whenever that second meeting is.
19th.
Is it?
Did we have something on the 19th? I think there was something,
We have an application, yes, but
I thought there was a public hearing. Oh, wait.
Next
Never mind.
meeting, yeah.
No. No.
Okay.
Make a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
All in favor?
well,
I
does
second
that-
it.
Yeah.
Oh.